Did you know there's an engine out there with no crankshaft? Or another so big it can host a wedding party? Welcome to the bizarre world of automotive engineering, where nothing is too strange if it works. Today we're counting down the 10 weirdest car engines you've never heard of. From V16 oddities to piston-free madness, buckle up, because this ride gets mechanical in all the wrong ways. Let's start off the list with an unusual build that nobody saw coming. Number 10, V16 Engine. The V16 engine is one of the weirdest ever made, not because it's impractical, but because it exists at all. 16 cylinders? Really? That's more moving parts than anyone asked for, and yet a few bold manufacturers decided to push the limits of engine design just to say, why not? While V8s became the gold standard for power and smoothness, a V16 takes that idea and doubles it, literally. You're looking at two V8s sharing a crankshaft, sometimes even operating in two separate banks with independent intake and exhaust systems. It's like someone saw a V12 and thought they could do more. Now, the weirdness really kicks in when you realize how few of these actually made it to public roads. Cadillac famously used V16s in the 1930s as rolling proof of engineering excess. Auto Union, which later became part of Audi, experimented with them for race cars. More recently, brands like Sazetta shoved a V16 into a transverse layout just to melt gearheads' brains. The packaging issues alone are nightmare fuel. These engines are massive, complicated, and hard to cool, making them more of a flex than a functional solution. But perhaps the weirdest part is that they're too smooth. With so many cylinders firing in such close succession, a V16 barely makes a rumble. It hums. For some enthusiasts, that's oddly unsatisfying. You expect drama and get silence. So, while it's mechanically sound and mind-bogglingly balanced, the V16 ends up in the Weird Engine Hall of Fame not just because of its over-the-top layout, but because it answers a question almost nobody asked. It's a monument to excess, a curiosity of engineering bravado, and a glorious example of when more becomes bizarre just by existing. Hey, if you're enjoying this channel focused on the European car market, don't forget to subscribe for more updates, insights, and exciting content coming your way. Next on the list is this engineering oddity. Number 9, Bugatti W16. And number 9 is the Bugatti W16, the mechanical absurdity that somehow made it into real-life hypercars. Think about it, a quad-turbocharged, 8-liter, 16-cylinder monster made by merging two narrow-angle V8s into a W configuration. That alone makes it one of the most over-engineered, overachieving power plants in automotive history. Who else but Bugatti would greenlight something this extreme just to make a point? Let's break down the weirdness. Most modern engines aim for efficiency, compact packaging, and manageable complexity. The W16, it threw all that out the window. It has 64 valves, 4 turbochargers, 10 radiators, and demands an intricate cooling system just to stay civil at idle. The thing drinks fuel like a jet engine and sounds like one when pushed. Yet somehow this unholy amalgamation of parts puts out 1,000 to 1,600 horsepower, depending on the version. This engine isn't a brute like you might expect. In fact, you can drive it in traffic. You can even make it your daily commute if you want your neighbors to know how edgy you are, and it won't overheat or stall. That's part of the weird genius. Bugatti didn't build a race engine. They built a luxury-capable monster that behaves better than some commuter cars. Also, it's incredibly rare. Outside of the Veyron and Chiron, no other production car uses this setup. Why? Because no other car maker wants to mess with the sheer complexity or the astronomical cost of building something like this. It's not weird because it failed, it's weird because it succeeded. An engineering middle finger to normalcy, and we may never see anything quite like it again. Number 8, GMC Twin 6 V12. The GMC Twin 6 V12 is a bizarre mechanical mashup that somehow made it to production. Born in the 1960s, this 702 cubic inch, 11.5-liter behemoth wasn't made for speed demons or luxury cruisers. It was designed for workhorses like heavy-duty trucks. Interestingly, GMC didn't build this V12 from scratch. Instead, they basically welded together two 305 cubic inch V6s. Yes, two V6s on a single block with a shared crankshaft. The result was a Frankenstein's monster of an engine that looked like it had no business running, but somehow did. It had a single distributor, but 2 intake manifolds, 2 exhaust manifolds, and 24 spark plugs. The engine produced a modest 275 horsepower, but a mountain-moving 630 pound-feet of torque. Perfect for hauling freight or dragging buildings off foundations. What made it extra strange is how smooth it was for its size, as vibrations were almost non-existent, thanks to the symmetry of the design. But despite its clever layout and surprising refinement, it was massive, heavy and drank fuel like a retired battleship. Still, it ran cool, lasted forever, and made maintenance easy because many parts were shared with the V6s it was born from. Today, the Twin 6 is a forgotten oddity. It never made its way into pickups or performance builds, and you won't see one at your local drag strip. But its sheer size, hybridized design, and utilitarian purpose make it one of the weirdest engines ever bolted into a vehicle. It was practical insanity, a V12 born from necessity, not excess, and that, in the world of strange engines, earns its spot in the Hall of Fame. Number 7, Oldsmobile Turbo Rocket V8. The Oldsmobile Turbo Rocket V8 earns its place among the weirdest engines ever made because it was a turbocharged V8 in the early 1960s. That alone should raise eyebrows. Back in 1962, when most people still thought a turbo was some kind of airplane gadget, Oldsmobile dropped this oddity into the compact Jetfire Coupe. It was a 215 cubic inch, 3.5-liter aluminum V8 paired with a Garrett T5 turbocharger, making it one of the first production turbocharged engines in the world. But here's where things got truly bizarre. To keep the engine from detonating itself into scrap metal, Oldsmobile introduced a special fluid called turbo rocket fluid, a mix of water and methanol you had to refill manually. If the tank ran dry, performance dropped like a rock and the engine could knock or even break. It was like having to water your turbocharger to keep it happy. That's not engineering, that's a science experiment on wheels. Drivers didn't understand the tech, dealerships didn't know how to service it, and mechanics, most of them just yanked out the turbo altogether because it caused more confusion than horsepower. It made about 215 horsepower, which was impressive for its time, but the system's fragility and complexity doomed it. The Turbo Rocket V8 was way ahead of its time, but it was also way too complicated for an era where most people didn't even know what a fuel injection system was. Tried to introduce 21st century thinking in the middle of a muscle car decade, and the result was a magnificent, misunderstood mechanical weirdo that never stood a chance. That's why it's not just rare or historic, it's straight up bizarre, and still sparks conversation to this day. Number 6, Sazetta V16T. The Sazetta V16T is one of the weirdest engines ever made because, frankly, no one asked for it, and yet someone still built it with absolute conviction. Designed in the late 80s by Claudio Zampoli, a former Lamborghini engineer, the V16T was powered by a 6-liter transverse-mounted V16 engine. Yes, you read that right, a 16-cylinder engine mounted sideways in a supercar. In a world where V12s were already a handful and most supercars stuck to simpler V8s or V10s, this was like bringing a bazooka to a boxing match. What makes it even weirder is how they created it. The V16 was essentially 2 Lamborghini V8s fused together into a single block, with a central shaft routing power to a rear transaxle. That meant the engine was not only absurdly wide, but also required extensive engineering just to make the packaging work. This led to the car's massive, almost cartoonishly broad rear end. From a technical perspective, it was an ambitious attempt at excess. The engine produced 560 horsepower, which was impressive at the time, but the car's bizarre proportions, extreme layout, and limited production, with only a handful made, turned it into an engineering curiosity more than a performance legend. Then there's the design. The V16T looks like a Countach and a Testarossa got into a fight in a mirror maze. Loud, angular, and impossibly dramatic. It screamed 1980s futurism with zero restraint. In the end, the Sazetta V16 didn't sell well, wasn't particularly practical, and never reached the heights of its more famous rivals. But in terms of pure mechanical audacity and why-not energy, it's in a league of its own. A transverse V16? That's not just weird, that's next-level automotive madness. Now that we're into the top 5, prepare for things to really get weird. Number 5, Free Piston Engine. The Free Piston Engine is downright alien in how it throws out almost everything you thought an engine needed to function. No crankshaft, no connecting rods, no traditional pistons spinning something to make wheels go round. Instead, this thing operates with pistons that move freely in a straight line, bouncing back and forth between combustion chambers like high-speed pogo sticks trapped in a tunnel. Here's the real kicker. Instead of turning mechanical motion into rotational force like a normal engine, the free piston engine often powers a linear generator, turning that back and forth motion directly into electricity. That's right, it skips the entire crankshaft party and goes straight into generating juice. In some versions, it was even considered for hybrid vehicles, acting as a range extender without any direct connection to the wheels. And because the pistons are free-floating, everything has to be balanced and timed perfectly by the forces of combustion and compression alone. There are no cams or gears holding anything together, just a controlled internal explosion trying not to send everything flying in opposite directions. If you're picturing controlled chaos wrapped in metal, you're close. While it's never been mainstream, the free piston concept has seen interest from experimental automotive tech, military applications, and even renewable energy setups. It's one of those ideas that keeps popping up every few decades like a mad scientist's dream that refuses to die. Why is it one of the weirdest engines ever made? Because it breaks nearly every rule of internal combustion engines and somehow still works. It's bizarre, brutally efficient in theory, and proof that when engineers throw out the rulebook, you end up with something that looks more like science fiction than anything you'd expect under a hood. Number 4, Napier Deltic. At number 4 is the Napier Deltic engine, and it's not just weird, it's the kind of mechanical madness that looks like someone tried to build an engine using submarine blueprints and a bucket of caffeine. Born in post-war Britain, the Deltic wasn't made for your typical car or even aircraft. Nope, this monster was designed for naval vessels and locomotives where noise, complexity, and sheer engineering insanity were apparently welcome. So, what makes it so bizarre? Start with the shape. Instead of your usual inline or V-shaped configuration, the Deltic is literally shaped like a triangle. Inside that triangle are 3 banks of opposed pistons. Each side of the triangle is essentially its own cylinder bank, and each bank drives its own crankshaft. That's right, this thing has 3 crankshafts, synchronized through an intricate gearing system that looks like clockwork exploded. It's a 2-stroke diesel engine with no cylinder heads because each pair of pistons meets in the middle of the combustion chamber, meaning they compress the fuel-air mixture between them. The whole setup was supposed to offer massive power in a compact space, which it did. The Deltic could rev absurdly high for a diesel and push out more than 2,500 horsepower in some variants, which is absolutely wild considering it was first developed in the 1950s. But with all that clever engineering came equally intense headaches. Maintenance was brutal, synchronizing the crankshafts was a nightmare, and the noise? Think chainsaw meets freight train on fire. Still, it found success in British naval patrol boats and diesel locomotives where space was tight and power was king. Today, the Deltic is a mechanical legend, an engine so strange and over-engineered it's hard to believe it ever existed, but it did, and it ran loudly. Number 3, BRM H16. The BRM H16 engine is the kind of engineering madness that makes even seasoned gearheads raise an eyebrow. Built in the mid-1960s for Formula One, this 3-liter monster was a mechanical jigsaw puzzle on wheels. Instead of a conventional V layout, BRM decided to stack 2 flat 8 engines on top of each other and connect them via complex gearing. The result? A 16-cylinder H-shaped layout that was as ambitious as it was heavy, unreliable, and utterly perplexing. On paper, it sounded revolutionary. 2 horizontally opposed engines working in sync should have delivered power and balance, right? Well, not quite. We're talking about 4 camshafts, 32 valves, dual crankshafts, and enough moving parts to make even the bravest mechanics sweat. The engine tipped the scales at nearly 500 pounds, way too heavy for a Formula One car, especially one meant to be agile and nimble. Despite its flaws, the H16 did have one shining moment, powering the Lotus 43 to a single Grand Prix victory in 1966. But even that win came with a catch. The engine was reportedly on its last legs by the time the checkered flag waved. The BRM H16 remains infamous, not just because it was weird, but because it was a bold leap into the unknown. It took a simple goal, make more power, and twisted it into an overcomplicated, unreliable, yet strangely fascinating attempt at innovation. It's not a success story. It's a cautionary tale of what happens when engineering creativity goes completely off the rails. And that's exactly why it belongs on any list of the weirdest engines ever made, because no one before or since has dared to make an engine like it again. Number 2, Roots TS3. The Roots TS3, affectionately and sometimes mockingly known as the Knocker, is well worth its place at number 2 for one simple reason. It broke almost every conventional rule in engine design and somehow still worked. This British-built 3.3-liter 3-cylinder 2-stroke diesel engine wasn't just quirky, it was a full-blown mechanical oddity. Let's start with the basics. The TS3 had opposed pistons, meaning each cylinder contained 2 pistons facing each other. There were no cylinder heads. Instead, combustion happened between the pistons as they approached one another, compressing the air-fuel mixture from both ends. That's already bizarre, but it gets wilder. These pistons weren't driving 2 crankshafts, like in many other opposed piston designs. No, the TS3 had only 1 crankshaft, and it drove all 6 pistons through an elaborate system of giant, clattering rocker arms and connecting rods. Think of it like 2 seesaws fighting each other inside an engine block, and you're getting close. And oh boy, did it make a noise. The engine's unique layout gave it a distinct knocking sound that made it instantly recognizable on British roads, hence the nickname Knocker. Truck drivers either loved it or hated it, but there was no in-between. It was loud, crude, vibrated like a washing machine on max spin, but it was also reliable, torquey, and compact enough to fit under the cab floor in forward control trucks. In terms of weirdness, it checks every box: unconventional layout, strange sound, Rube Goldberg-style mechanics, and a performance curve that was unlike anything else on the market. It may not have been beautiful, but it was undeniably brilliant in its strangeness. The TS3 is one of those engines that makes you ask why, and then slowly nod and say, actually, why not? And now for the number one, the weirdest car engine ever made. Number 1, Verilaser RTA 96C. The Verilaser RTA 96C isn't just an engine, it's a skyscraper that burns fuel and moves ships. This beast holds the title of the largest and most powerful internal combustion engine in the world, and the scale alone makes it one of the weirdest mechanical creations humanity has ever cobbled together. Measuring over 89 feet long and 44 feet high, it's not something you drop into a car or even a tank. It's designed solely for container ships that ferry thousands of tons of cargo across oceans, and its specs are flat out bonkers. This turbocharged two-stroke diesel engine can have up to 14 cylinders, and each of those cylinders is the size of a small room. Each piston alone weighs several tons, and when the engine's running, it operates at just 102 RPM, barely idling by automotive standards. But that idle cranks out over 107,000 horsepower and nearly 7.6 million nanometers of torque. To put that in perspective, that's enough grunt to pull multiple trains up a mountain sideways. And unlike anything you've ever seen in a regular vehicle, this engine uses crosshead pistons, massive connecting rods, and a labyrinth of turbochargers and intercoolers. All so big they require ladders and catwalks just to inspect. Maintenance? Entire teams of engineers work inside the engine. It's also incredibly efficient for its size, designed to burn low-grade bunker fuel while achieving surprisingly good thermal efficiency thanks to electronic injection and precision timing. But at the end of the day, what makes the RTA 96C so weird isn't just its scale or power, it's that it turns a ship the size of a floating city into something smooth and reliable. Without a doubt, the RTA 96C is industrial absurdity at its finest. Which of these engines shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching. To enjoy more exciting videos, click play on the video on your screen, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you get notified when a new video drops. Hey, if you're enjoying this channel focused on the European car market, don't forget to subscribe for more updates, insights, and exciting content coming your way.